Dragon Ball Z. Dragon, rock the Dragon Ball Z.
El Topo Loco, back at it again. Today we are with, of course, my boy Miguel, my partner in crime. And we have none other than
Honale.
Johku DMD. Johku DMD, aka Johnny Tull in the flesh. What's up, man?
This is
part 2 of In Joku's Pants.
This is my flesh.
Yeah, I would hope so.
What a relief.
Yeah, so we're just here, part 2 of the series.
Yeah, we did part 1 over on my channel, In Joku's Pants part 1, but now we're doing these 2 parts so we can bring channels together.
We're just shooting the shit.
Yeah. I think Miguel and I, we didn't have another mic at the time to get Johnny in that one, and I didn't have time to make 2 pairs of pants, but I'll get Johnny on for another part 1 at some point. But, we talked a lot about emotional, metaphysical, the outside of the deck box. Yeah. But I think it's time on this segment that we go inside the deck box. And I know for me, playing with you guys has helped me get good. And I think everybody that plays this game wants to get good. So I think a good thing to just jump into are like, how do you get good? Rules of the trade. Yeah. Number 1, sensei.
What's the question?
What would you say is the first step of getting good?
Learn what your cards do.
That's actually a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, like figure out what you're playing. Figure out like all the interactions your cards have with other decks that you'll be playing against. So know your matchups, know what your cards do, know rulings. Like, fundamentals will get you super far in a tournament. Just knowing all the fundamentals of the game.
Totally.
Yeah.
Another thing you said to me once when we kind of started playing was you were like, watch your opponent. And not just because they may be trying to pull something that you don't know or don't pay attention to, but read the cards. Stop people and check what the cards do and make sure the text is lining up with what they're saying. And even something Johnny was saying, like if somebody's playing Sin Shenron and they play the Nova Shenron and then they bring out, another Nova Shenron, like they can't do that. But like, are you going to stop the game to take a look at that card and be like, oh, wait a second, you can only play 19Ks or less with different names.
Yeah, so
right?
he's talking about the 4-drop Nova Shenron that you play for 1 if you have another Sin up. There's a lot of restrictions on that card. So like, sure, it seems broken that you could just Monster Reborn a dude, but there's a lot of restrictions. Like you can't have anything that's of the same name, and you can't have anything that's 20k or higher. So you can't summon Oceanus and you can't summon Haze. There's just a lot of restrictions. Just got to be on the lookout.
Yeah, knowing your cards. I think that's a really good point, knowing your cards. All right, Johnny, what's a tip that you would have for how to get good?
I think you have to identify what type of player you are, right? So like if you enjoy turning cards sideways, like then if you like playing aggro, then like you'll like sell at it, because like a lot of the times in this game there are certain patterns of like aggro, like they all kind of do the figure out how.
Yeah, I mean, if you jump into a deck that you think is good because you lost to it, or you think it's good because you've seen it do well, but when you play it, like you're not gonna do the right things with it because your tendency isn't to make those choices, you're gonna not do well, right? Like I tried to pick up Gogeta Xeno and I think I got pretty decent with it. I was doing all right with it, but that deck isn't a deck for me. I'm not an aggro player. I'm more of a control player, and trying to play Gogeta Xeno control, you're going to end up dropping more games than you're going to win because you have to tilt towards aggro when you're playing that game. But one of the things I learned from playing that was like last night when we were playing, and I pushed and actually got around all your other stuff, and I basically dumped my hand into an attack or into a series of attacks, including overwhelms and other things, which I very rarely do, but that got me the game.
That's really important too. Something that it's not easily said, or like something that's like a skill you have to identify in this game, is knowing when you have game. Like identifying that kill turn and then doing everything you can to make it happen.
How much of that do you think would revolve around cards in hand?
Before I pass turn, as I'm untapping all my energy, I always ask my opponent no matter what, how many cards in hand. So I have an idea of what I'm trying to push through.
That's a really good point.
Like I'll always ask them.
I think people hear how many cards in hand a lot, and that question has a lot of questions and answers linked to it. but knowing the idea of, okay, I want to know how many cards you have because I want to know how much I have to push through. And some players might ask that question and say, okay, I know how many cards you have in hand. Now I know what I have to defend through.
I've seen, just watching people play, just like, I've seen so many times where they've had game and then they just pass. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. It happens at Greg's all the time. And then you sit there and walk them through it and they're like, oh, wow, maybe I'll get good.
You can always do minor math, you know, going on that. Like you were teaching me that like there's only 2 swings that really matter in the game. The one before lethal and then the one that's lethal.
Yeah, it's like the check and then the mate. You gotta combo just enough on that check that they
I like
take
that
it.
a lot. That's a really good concept, the check and the mate. Yeah.
It's really important just to find out just enough combo that you need for them to take that life.
In French, they
and
actually
then
call
game
it
them next.
checkmate.
Yeah, come on.
Back to what you were saying. You were saying identify like what player you're and what style you like.
Yeah.
But it's also like good to play other decks that you're going to be seeing.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
to understand how they work and how can you know where they're weak and you know where they're strong. So then it makes your game plan a lot stronger because you'll know your deck and you'll know the insides of their deck. So that's huge too.
And you also learn things about your deck and how to do things in your deck because you played that deck. Like I was talking about with the Gogeta Xeno matchup, I learned a little bit of aggro, you know, and you have to have some aggro tendency in whatever deck you're playing because identifying the check and the checkmate kind of thing. That's really good. I like that a lot. All right, rule number 2. What's the next tip? How do you get good in the Dragon Ball Super card game? El Topo Loco.
Are we doing like
Sensei tips.
simple stuff or
Yeah, sure. Simple stuff. Whatever.
simple stuff? For me, like, I don't know if this counts as simple, but for me, when I'm playing against my opponent, I'm sitting across my opponent, a big thing is body language.
Yes.
You can ask like simple questions, like be friendly, like, do you have this? Do you have that? You can be intuitive in the things you pick up off your opponent, just from little mannerisms they do and how they react to certain questions.
Sure. Yeah.
I would just ask my opponent, do you have such and such card? And then based on how they respond, I know that they don't have it and I just kill them.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they're just such nice people that they'll literally tell you, oh, I don't have such and such.
Yeah, it happens. But also, not only just about that, like talking about what cards are in their deck or what they're playing, or you know, identifying a card in their energy. They're like, okay, if that's in your energy, I gotta respect that card. But one of the first things you told me, Miguel, was like, you were like, when you sit down at that mat, you have to know that the person that's sitting across from you is more nervous than you are, because as soon as you identify that, then you have an advantage in that your nerves are less likely to get the best of you.
That's my rule when you're on stream. If you're on stream, always think of it that way. My opponent is more nervous than I am.
You remember watching me on stream
Yes.
at Chicago?
Yes.
I was absolute confidence.
Absolute confidence. Good card.
Yosha! All right, cool. Yeah, I like that one about body language. I think
I got one more too.
Yeah.
Keeping track of what your opponent has already used in their drop, in their warp, and just keep track of little things, because you can identify whether you have like game, you have that, you know, according to whatever ratios are standard in decks, you can actually just analyze like, you know, a certain percentage. I have game now.
Sure.
You know, and I'm willing to take that risk.
On that note, keeping track of things like plussing on a unison and drawing a card, right? If it's a ±0, it's very easy for people to ±0 twice. Like if it's very important, and when you're playing against blue, if they ±0 and draw, identify that. Maybe like turn a dice or something and make sure, because after 8 rounds of Swiss going through Nats, like it's gonna be mentally exhausting, and by the end of that day, you gotta stay hydrated, and you gotta wash your hands, and you gotta make sure that you know what has happened in a turn and keeping track of what's going on in a turn. I think that's really valuable advice.
And don't get tilted. Enjoy every minute of it. Have fun with whatever you're playing. As long as you're having fun, you've already won. That's
right.
That's my man over here.
I'm gonna
I like that.
I'm gonna jump back on that actually. So I'm gonna take one on how to get good. This is a tip that you gave me, Miguel, actually, and you said it's from the Art of War, which is really cool. I like that a lot. That like there are things in ancient texts or like very old texts that actually apply directly to playing.
I'd say I remember,
this
but
game.
I don't remember what I told you.
So what you told me was, don't play the game to beat your opponent. Play the game to let your opponent beat themselves.
Yes. Capitalize on your opponent's mistakes.
That is how like grindy games like Blue Mirrors or like Gohan Icarus, right? Like, or Gohan Icarus versus like Soul Striker, like those games that are gonna go into time or go almost that full hour, there is gonna be one mistake that a player makes. It can be as simple as comboing a UI Kamehameha into a Zamasu, or like comboing off an ape offensively when you
Not
don't need to.
comboing enough.
Not comboing enough and going down to 2 because you think you're gonna trick your opponent, but actually you're being bad.
Thinking you can out combo your opponent.
Yeah.
And then getting blasted.
Yep. Like knowing when to use your resources, when to hold your resources, and what position holding your resources is going to put you in. Because if your opponent overextends, that overextension, I mean, how many games have you guys played that it's a 5K game?
A lot. Those are the best, though.
Right?
Those are the best and the worst because you're just like, oh,
the best and the worst, but you know that you played it well. And you know that if there was a place that you didn't play well, if you're able to identify where that place was, that's how you're going to get better.
That's huge. Can I jump in here for a second?
Yeah, please.
After every game I analyze, I like to go back because I'm very critical of myself when I play this game. At the end of every game, if I've lost that game, I try to figure out exactly when and where I messed up. And if there is a way for me to like get out of it. Sometimes there's just no way for me to win, and I just accept the fact and I just move on.
Yeah, I think it's funny. You you keep track of your wins on you have a marker, and whenever you get a champion pack or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are like, dude, that's like petty. Like, why would you keep track of that sort of thing? But I think it's a growth thing. You know, you're not keeping track to see how many days you've been in the tank. You're keeping track to identify, okay, these are the times that I did well enough that I don't have to overanalyze what I did. But the next time that you get the opportunity to overanalyze what you did and really go into what you do, that's where your growth comes from, and that's where you get better.
Yeah, I do have a little note.
We should go into like specific decks and little tips we have. Like, do you have any tips for us playing like Gogeta Xeno?
Oh yeah, okay. So this
or
is
just
coming
aggro.
out. Yeah, this is coming out before. I don't know, after Nats.
Yeah.
All right, so guys, wish us luck, please.
I'm not going, but I'll be there in spirit.
I'm playing RNGesus here because I'm playing Gogeta Xeno. But basically, I've streamlined it to like the bare minimum 52 cards, in my opinion, to allow me to do the most broken turn 1 thing, and it's SS3 thwarting turn 1. The best way for me to, because I think that's the most powerful 1-drop in this game, right? And like when you think about like aggro, like you want those powerful, high value, cheap cards. So like what's the best way to turn 1 thwarting? And I think I've hit that. Okay, so what's the best way to turn 1 thwarting and be able to close out the game as well in the best way possible? And I think I've come down to the perfect 52. I might eat my words on this one, but
what's really cool about watching you, the way that like every time you don't even have to hit your curve super hard. You just need a couple pieces in the right place. And basically what I watch you do repetitively is, okay, so turn 1, you'll smoke. And then you get your draw. You see what's in your deck. You see what's available, what you need. And then turn 2, if you're going first, you'll do that, right? So you're putting smoke in the drop. And then if you happen to mill another smoke and a Kai, that's 2 in the drop. So a lot of times what I'll see you do is you'll maybe swing lead, you'll play 1-drop, swing with the 1-drop, take a life, that's another damage, and then they're at 6, and then on your leader swing a lot of times, or you'll play the 1-drop, swing with that, take a life, so they're at 15, then you'll swing with your leader, and a lot of times you'll combo a 5k on your leader, and when you combo the 5k on your leader, when they're at 6 life, they're still not going to combo out of a 15k, and when they're at 7 life or whatever, so they'll go to 6, and then when you combo that off, you're at 3 in the drop, you overwhelm Trunks, play Trunks, swing with Trunks, they're still not going to combo out of a 15 on a...
When they're at 6.
When they're at 6, that puts them at 5. Once they're at 5, you Gogeta them, and then they're either going to evolution booster negate, or they're going to take that hit and go to 3. And more often than not, they're going to take that hit and go to 3, and if they are planning on negating, and the 1-drop you played was True Fighting Spirit Goku, then they're negging 2 and losing a blocker. So that's one of the things I've identified. We've played probably like close to 150 games at this point in preparation.
Quite a lot, yeah.
And like I've noticed the consistency at which you do that. Like you identify that is the best way to get like the pre-checkmate. That's the setup to get your opponent into that place where you can checkmate them. Wow, that makes so much sense after hearing that.
Cool.
You're amazing at this game.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I think that's about gonna wrap it up, right?
Yeah,
Is there
I
anything
think.
else you
Well,
wanted to say?
We could probably sit here all day. and
we
talk
could
about
sit
Yeah,
here all
we
day.
really
But
could.
Steve also has a life that he has to live. Thank you, Steve, for recording this. And
Yeah, shout out to Steve.
He's over there
Steve.
shaking his head. What a good guy. What a good guy. Yeah, there he is. There's Steve. Thumbs up. So, you guys, I think, through playing with you, you definitely raised my level of skill significantly. And I'm ever grateful for that. I think, our friendship we've built on top of that is even that much cooler. But you guys invited me to be on El Topo Loco, and I was for a while. And
You're still not already a member.
yeah,
I'm still in the chat.
I'm still in the chat. I still hang out. I still plug my videos in the chat. Yeah, but I feel like, moving into doing my own thing, like what I took from that, I think El Topo Loco basically is the team with like the most slept on players. Like Johnny, you have consistently topped card game events since you were like a kid, basically. Yeah. Like you've consistently done well. And one of the things that I think people think is like, oh, like, yeah, Jordan Markle won Nats, but like he's not winning like every event anymore. Like he wins one every once in a while. Like Jordan's a great player. He's a really, really good player. And like, he's a really nice guy. And he does well. And that's the thing that's important. It's not about being first place in every single event. It's about doing well consistently over a lot of events. And that's something that both of you guys do, is you get in the top bracket in pretty much every event you go to. And that's not easy to do, because this game is not just about skill. There's luck that comes into it. There's bad matchups. There's, tiebreakers. Like there's all this other stuff that goes into how you rank in these things. And I think, a lot of the players in El Topo Loco, you guys especially, you're just consistently good, and I think as a goal, if you're a player that like, I want to get good at this game, don't focus on being number one every single time, because you're just going to be mad at yourself. What you should focus on is consistently doing well.
We're constantly trying to improve,
Yeah.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, totally. And I think, what I took from that and wanting to form my own team was like, I'm not even as interested in having a team of like the champions. I don't want to have all the champions on my team. I want to have winners on my team. And what I mean by winners are like people with winner personalities, that when you sit down across from them and you play that game, you're not walking away being like, man, that guy was scum. You're walking away being like, I actually had a really fun time. Like, regardless of when I won or lost, like, I'm going to remember the jokes and the laughs that we had. And like, that was one of the things Robert Rizzi said to me when we played. He was like, dude, this whole event has been so stressful. It's been so difficult. Like, I've been playing this new leader, and like, I literally had the funnest match I've ever played, like sitting down and playing with you. And that meant more to me than, having the first place crowd or whatever, And having I wanted to build a team that has players that when you play with them, you're like, yeah, I feel good about playing that person. And at the end of the day, I think that's really what makes winning, is like the winning attitude of like, yeah, I won because I had a good time.
Yeah,
played fun. Yeah.
Super
But at the same time, it is also important and cool to have that competitive edge and do that thing. And, big respect to all the teams out there that do have really amazing players and put this stuff together. But, yeah, I think that was really good stuff. I feel like I've learned a ton. And in just the things that were just said in this, like, it's not just limited to those things. Those things expand. And there's a lot that surrounds all of that. So some of the best players in the game right here. Some of the most handsome boys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Wait.
Don't hatch on the first attack, please.
Yeah, don't hatch on. Yeah. Let him waste some
That's
energy.
like galaxy brain. You didn't hear that from us. Oh, you did. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to always like, comment, subscribe, and as always, stay loco.
Stay loco.
And I'll just close it out with this last little bit here. As flies for wanton boys, we are for the gods. We kill them for the sport. Soon the science will not only fix the cells, but will create the cells to perfect. So we are eternal. Now's the part where you look really confused and start clapping. Thanks for watching.
And everyone in this room.